let's call them landed gentry. Okay. And this fertile grazing ground for their cattle is outside of what will become, in essence, Israel. And they don't want to make Aliyah. They don't want to make Aliyah. They're happy in the diaspora, to put it in modern terms. Hey, we love Southern California. We've got a big real estate business here. Can you just let us stay here? Give us Southern California, and you go have a perfectly fine time in Israel making Aliyah. That's essentially what they're asking. They don't want to lose their business. They're happy where they are, and their love of Israel or commitment to Israel is subordinate to their diasporic lifestyle. Okay, and I accept that's a conflation of ancient and contemporary vocabulary and perspective, but you get the idea, I hope. And so that's essentially what they're expressing to Moses, Eleazar, and the leadership of the biblical Jewish community. Okay, any questions about that? We're good. Okay, so let's see what the answer is. Verse 6, Marty.
Moses replied to the Gadites and the Reubenites, "As your brothers to go to war while you stay, are your brothers to go to war while you stay here? Why will you turn the minds of the Israelites from crossing into the land that the Lord has given them? That is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to survey the land."
Okay, so now wait, let me just stop for the reference, and many of you know this. He is referring to when they sent spies into Canaan before attacking, and 10 of the 12 spies came back with a not a negative report about Israel as a land, but that it was unconquerable. And they say that we felt like grasshoppers in front of the inhabitants of Canaan. They seemed like giants to us. And only Joshua and Caleb, 2 of the 12 spies, say, yeah, we can do this. So he's referencing back now to another example of a group of Jews preferring to stay outside of the boundaries, outside of the land, rather than fight and die for it. You might now see we're heading in a particular direction. Okay, go ahead.
All right. After going up to the Wadi Eshcol and surveying the land, they turned the minds of the Israelites from invading the land that the Lord had given them. Thereupon the Lord was incensed, and he swore, none of the men from 20 years up who came to Israel shall see the land that
came out of Egypt. Who came out of Egypt?
Oh, I'm sorry. Came out of Egypt shall see the land that I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But they did not remain loyal to me, none except Caleb, son of Jephunneh.
Just roll over.
Joshua, the son of Nun, for they remained loyal to the Lord.
So there you go. There. In other words, the punishment for the 10 spies' unwillingness to engage in conquering and creating the biblical state of Israel, not the modern state, obviously, was that none of them were allowed in. That whole generation had to die out, other than the 2 spies who were on mission, so to speak. And that was the punishment. Okay.
All right. The Lord was incensed at Israel, and for 40 years he made them wander in the wilderness until the whole generation that had provoked the Lord's displeasure was gone. And now you, a breed of sinful men, have replaced your fathers to add still further to the Lord's wrath against Israel. If you turn away from him and he abandons them once more in the wilderness, you will bring calamity upon all this people. More in the wilderness. Okay,
Well,
Then
basically, you're a bunch of cowards like the 10 spies, and you're going to lead, it's going to lead to God's anger, and we're going to have another delay, another punishment, another generation of time will have to pass before we'll have this opportunity again. Okay.
Then they stepped up to him and said, "We will build here sheepfolds for our flocks and towns for our children. We will hasten as shock troops in the van of the Israelites until we have established them in their home, while our children stay in the fortified towns because of the uh, inhabitants of the land. We shall not return to our homes until every one of the Israelites is in possession of his portion, but we will not have a share with them in the territory beyond the Jordan, for we have received our share on the east side of the Jordan."
Okay. So you see the deal. They say, we agree with you. We'll make sure our livestock and families are safe, and then we'll be the tip of the spear. We'll be the first one in, and we won't leave until every Jew has their rightful possession in the land of Israel and then we'll return to the diaspora. So and I think this notion of they stepped up is exactly right, both in its literal and metaphorical meaning. They stepped up. They did not. Well, who knows if they would have had Moses said yes right away, but they accept their responsibility. And they acknowledge it and accept it. Okay, a little bit more, and then we're going to talk about this.
Moses said to them, "If you do this, if you go to battle as shock troops at the instance of the Lord, and every shock fighter among you crosses the Jordan at the instance of the Lord until he has dispossessed his enemies before him. The land has been subdued at the instance of the Lord, and then you return. You shall be clear before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your holding unto the Lord. But you do not. But if you do not do so, you will have sinned against the Lord, and know that your sin will overtake you. Build towns for your children and sheepfolds for your flocks, but do what you have promised."
Okay, let's stop there. And let's think about the meta principle and message here. All right. So who would like to help me? Who'd like to start us off? What where is the relevance? Where is the relevance?
You mean the contemporaneous irrelevant?
Correct.
Yes. Well, holding the land.
I do. That is what I mean. But I want to hear what people have to say. Yeah, Panina, go ahead.
Okay, let me just turn on the.
We can hear you. No, you turned it off now.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yeah, Ben, you'll be next. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to do it.
Wait. Let me just Panina, Ben, Susan. Go ahead.
So can I talk or not?
Yes, please do.
Okay, all right. I think that we are talking. We see a lot of geography here in this paragraph. Of where to go, up to where from, next to, and there is two words that are very important that people don't pay attention when they read it. The word vadi. Vadi is a place where water goes through. So the question of water in Israel was always there. And unless you walked like Abraham did, what did he do the first thing? Uncovered wells. He dug wells. Came the Philistine, blocked the wells.
No, water is the tail that wags the dog,
exactly.
for sure.
Water in Israel is always, during 1948, 10,000 Israelis literally died to clear the road to Jerusalem to bring water in trucks, in barrels. Water didn't just get to wherever it is in Israel.
So
you gotta walk it just like Abraham dug wells. You need to walk at it. You have to make passages to get.
So how does that relate? Penina?
It relates that they didn't want to settle in a certain part. And you mentioned the word vadi. Vadi is an accumulation of water. So it's like it's not the land or the people. It's where in the land they were supposed to go
It's the
settle.
water.
If
Yes.
they would have
Okay.
joined the rest of the tribes that already there, they already were settlements where they knew or they dug them or there was a way to bring it through. But the minute that they said the word vadi, then you know already that you have a problem with water. Vadi is a small accumulation of water.
It can be a dry riverbed
It's a
too.
little, it's like a mud path.
Or honestly, it of a dry riverbed in the desert.
Exactly. And this is something that Israel accepted when they decided that this is what they were given by the UN. And they knew right away that they have to work at it. What did they do? They dried the hula because everybody was getting typhus from it. Because was no way for the water to go. It's the Sea of Galilee.
But
It's
Penina,
surrounded in mud because there is no ways to take it away.
so
So people walk
what
the land there. So you, I can't stop because you're stopping me from describing the land and why is it that the problem came. If you cannot see the picture and the map of how all this is related to a presence of water, then I can talk from today till tomorrow and you're not going to get it.
No,
Okay.
I think that it's important, your point about wanting to be, let's say, on the prime grazing land.
Not prime, a place where they can dig and get water, please.
They want
It's
it.
simple, no prime. Jerusalem was a prime. They had no water, but it was still a prime, but they found a way to bring it to it.
Okay,
That's
but
why King Solomon had all those wadis around the palace to collect water.
right, but what I'm trying to get at is what is the current relevance?
That they didn't want to dig and they didn't want to work at it. They want to
There
go
we go.
there. That's it.
They wanted the diasporic easy life.
Whatever.
That's where we're trying to get. I understand your point now fully, and I agree with it. Ben, you're next.
Rabbi, thank you. It's nice to see you today.
You too.
I'm not sure if I can exactly place the relevance today, but I'll give it a shot. But that the Rabbinites and the Gadonites, that they had to be all in, but just like the 10 spies who weren't all in and believing in the land of Israel, they didn't put to death. They were executed. You have to be a believer. You had to be with the team, showing that by going into the land, stay with the pack. But if you sort of fight with us and show your commitment to this promise, then I'll let you come back and be in your happy place with the water.
Okay.
Relevance today,
Well, let's hear from Susan, and then I'll give you my thinking about it. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, so first, I think it's a model of compromise and problem solving. So I just read, if I can cheat and bring in Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. I was very impressed with his essay on this, that it was a non-zero game. Both of them, and this is the good way for conflict resolution, to be focused on interests, and each one side developed options for the other that recognized and put into practice what the opposite group may have wanted. So I think this is, and they were both, Sachs says they were honest and principled in their reactions, trying to work out a solution. So, I mean, we have so much of that today in terms of negotiations that are constantly failing, because, I mean, even in Congress, because everyone wants everything that's not will compromise or accept some positions of
Right. And when Sachs wrote that, he was, really preaching to a parliamentary government, right? Where there was a lot of paralysis. We only have two parties and we're paralyzed. So yes, so you see it as the contemporary message. one of them, of course there's always more than one, is this, that one can reach an understanding where both parties evidence both commitment and getting what they want. It's both, and by recognizing the needs of the other, right? As like Sachs, right? And that's the contemporary message, right, Susan?
Yes, yes. I'm thinking in Congress, which is paralyzed, our Congress. So he's speaking to Parliament. This applies to our Congress and politics.
It does. Yes. Yes. Okay, David, go ahead, unmute.
It seems to me that another thing it's saying is, whether you're part of the periphery or you're part of the core group, you have a responsibility to the community that you're part of.
Yes, I think for me, yes, that's the most powerful message, is that for those of us who do not live in Israel, we're Reubenites and Gadites. And we're comfortable. We have a rich Jewish life here in Los Angeles. And it would be convenient and tempting to absolve ourselves of any and all responsibility and sacrifice for Israel. And this is a model, I think, David, you're right, presented to us, where if you want to live in the diaspora, that's up to you, but it does not absolve you of the obligation to fight for, and that means something different today than it did then, to fight for and protect Israel and our Jewish brothers and all our brothers and sisters in Israel, right? That the diaspora does not absolve you of responsibility. And that, in a sense, you're entitled to the diasporic life if and only if your commitment to Israel is very deep and very real. And that can be evidenced in lots of ways. Obviously, today it doesn't mean grabbing a sword and a shield and heading out to battle. It can be evidenced with a checkbook. It can be evidenced with sending your children there. It can be evidenced by who you vote for. It can be evidenced in many, many ways. But geography does not exempt us from our responsibility. And I think that's the salient point for today. And it has to do with something even deeper, in my opinion. I'll just be a little bit open here for a moment. And not everyone agrees with me about this. But my feeling since October 7th, with all of the opining and protesting going on by Jews outside of Israel, my response has been the only people who have a decision to make here and how to operate are Israelis in Israel. Like, you do not have, I've said this to Reform rabbis who are, opining. I said, you have no skin in the game. You have no business telling Israel or Israelis how they should think, how they should feel, what they should do, and what they shouldn't do. Israel is a democratically elected government, and they need to work this out for themselves. And you need to be quiet because you have no skin in the game. And this biblical paradigm here is you need skin in the game. And if you don't have rights. And it's a controversial position because people say, well, Israel belongs to all the Jewish people and Israel reflect blah, blah, blah. I just, during war, I didn't feel that, and I don't feel it today. Sometimes you got to let the driver drive. And if you're not willing to be in the driver's seat, you don't get to decide. So that to me is sort of the other side of this coin. And David, I think you put it pretty well by core and periphery. And by core and periphery here, we also mean it geographically. And here's a great example of a diasporic Jewish community, Reubenites and Gadites, stepping up and saying essentially to Moses, "You're right. We have to have skin in the game." So that's how I kind of see it. Rebecca, oh, Karen, you're next, then Rebecca, and then I think, oh, wait, I'm sorry. David, you were next, then Karen, then Rebecca. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are you saying that there shouldn't be any discussion about the situation as Israel? I know you're clear that you're saying to have skin in the game, you have to live in Israel in order to do so. But that does not mean that there shouldn't be discussions from us about what our opinions are, et cetera, or is that your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I presented it as a pretty binary thing, and it's never binary when it comes to Israel and the diaspora. What I was urging my colleagues to refrain from was armchair quarterbacking a war at a time when there were literally only 3 people in the world who knew all the information available and what should be done to respond to it. And it was not the time for opinions, only facts. And so it's not as binary, David, as I presented. Of course, we all have a right to our opinion, and they should this and they should that. But when you have a position of leadership in the community and you start, openly opining on military strategy, when you know nothing. I mean, one thing we do know is whatever's said publicly in and about the Middle East is never what's said privately. Yeah. It's all kabuki. Yeah. And I just felt that some of my colleagues were armchair quarterbacking a war, knowing absolutely nothing about war. Yeah. And knowing nothing about the facts. Yeah. That the War Council, which had only 3 people, knew. So it was more like stay in your lane kind of a thing. And also have skin in the game. I'll give you an example of how skin in the game changes understanding. Let's think about the Akedah, the story of the binding of Isaac. When Abraham hears this call, I know you know the story, and God says, take your son and sacrifice him on this mountain, and Abraham does it. And all of us, he is prepared to do it. And then, of course, it's stopped. This angel appears and a ram appears and Isaac is not sacrificed. But Abraham did follow orders. And this Torah portion was chosen by the rabbis to read on Rosh Hashanah because it was seen as a test of faith that Abraham passed. Some people think Abraham failed the test because he was a terrible father to do that. That he should have argued with God. Be that as it may, this Torah portion is completely different in its meaning for Israelis. Every Israeli has had to drive a child to basic training. Every Israeli has had to contemplate sacrificing their own child for the sake of the state of Israel. So when Israelis read about Abraham walking with his son up this mountain, knowing his son very potentially and likely would die, that's a feeling that Israelis know in a very different way than American Jews or diasporic Jews. And so this is an example of how skin in the game changes understanding and changes perception. And so that was more sort of my point, David, with my colleagues was you're not there. You don't know the facts. Just shut up. Just shut up. So that was more the point. Go ahead.
Would it be unfair to ask since you said we can discuss it, is it unfair to ask you what your thoughts are about the situation there? I don't want to put you on the
You mean
spot.
currently or at some point in the past 2 years?
Currently, I mean, I probably get the idea when it first occurred, a lot of people. Anyways, currently, and if you don't feel you want to, I don't want
No,
to.
look, I don't want to pretend to know what I don't know. So this may not be a particularly in-depth analysis, but and I think we've talked about some of this before. I think any prime minister of Israel, left, right, or center, would have made very similar decisions as Netanyahu through the course of this war. There would be differences and nuance, but I think fundamentally, the war would have been prosecuted very similarly by every prime minister of Israel. Shimon Peres would have, I believe, fought it this way. And I am very optimistic about the future in the Middle East and Israel's future. Israel didn't go looking for this conflict, but I do think the aftermath of the conflict will be a healthier, better Middle East with healthier and better relationships between Israel and between other Arab nations. I don't think any of us have seen Arab nations rushing to the defense of the Iranians. So I think this will ultimately be unifying. I know that disruption always leads to evolution. Is it worth the cost? No. I would take the old Middle East dynamic back if we could have, if we could dial the clock back to October 6th and stay there. I would. I'm not saying this is worth it. What I am saying is it's not going to be worth less. And I don't think there personally, and again, I'm an amateur, but personally, I don't think there's a big difference between how Netanyahu proceeded and how others would have done so under similar circumstances. And we also know that if Israel didn't care about civilians, this war would have been over in 3 days. Naftali Bennett told me that himself. He said, Steve, it would have taken 3 days if all we wanted to do was kill people. We could have destroyed Gaza in 3 days, maybe 2. So to claim that Israel, has shown no restraint and no care, I think is false. And then there are these other false metrics by the number of people who died. I've talked with all of you about this before who were with me on previous Zooms. The fact that at least 10 times the number of Germans died as Brits does not mean that the Germans were the victims in World War II. And it does not mean the British were the victimizers. So it's not the telling metric for who is the victim and who is the victimizer.
Thank you.
But generally speaking, I think Israel has had only bad and worse choices and have done the best they could. And I do think the aftermath is going to be better than it was on October 6th. But it's all ugly and sad.
Steve,
Yeah.
How does this portion of the thing apply to the very vocal minority in Israel who are not interested in fighting? All they want to do is to go to the yeshiva and read the Torah.
Yeah.
And they're not fighting. And
well, one of the positive, I think, end results is that's changing. That's changing. And I think without this terrible disruption, the status quo would remain. And this is what I meant by disruption always leads to evolution. And I'm not saying the disruption is worth it. Again, I have to say that. I'd rather be our dumb old naive selves on October 6th than have the 7th never happen, but it did. And I think the patience in Israel for yeshiva buchers not going into the army has worn extremely thin, and I think their days are numbered. So That's where I think that's going. And I think, Marty, you're right. If I were what's it called, the chief Ashkenazi rabbi of Israel, and they asked me to weigh in on this issue of the from the black hats going and fighting, I'd pull this Parsha out like that. So that's where I think we're headed. Now, I think who was Rebecca? I think, right? Or Karen? Yeah, Karen and then Rebecca. Karen, go ahead, please.
You really packed a lot into this, and it's very hard to parse it all. You've done a great job because I don't want to take all the time, but I have to take a little time.
Please.
So, okay. Everything you said, I don't disagree with. I'm just going to say I happen to watch Anandpur, not because I love everything, but because I like listening to the people who she does have on who are contrary to the way we are thinking.
Yeah.
And that's why I listen. Today, or last night, she had on the minister of Palestine, and he used a very strong word. And that is what I fear, hatred. This is all going to engender hatred. And you see, this is where it all gives them the opportunity to feel, oh, poor us, let's just hate the you-know-whats and keep doing what we're doing, even if it's not now. I hate to say this, I'm going to be dead, God knows, many years. This is all going to get cleared up, but they are always going to be after us because hatred will persist. They'll always remember what we've done to them. They will always be the offended, not the offenders.
Right.
And I cannot, sorry to be the
Karen, I believe that I happen to agree that, well, here's the conundrum, okay? And I don't know how else to put it. I mean, this is overly simplistic, but let me just quote Golda Meir, okay?
Yeah, until they begin to take care of themselves, they won't
Oh,
love us. Oh, no. Not that one.
No, but close. If we have to choose between a good reputation and death, I'm sorry. If we have to choose between a bad reputation and death, I'll take the bad reputation. This goes under this category of only bad and worse choices.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Steve.
No, I know you're not, but this is what I think. It's incredibly naive of Christiane Amanpour to, and by the way, I felt this way about Tom Friedman's article in the New York Times a few weeks ago, that Israel is, through its actions, is creating more Jew hatred in the diaspora.
Now she gets the support from the Palestinians.
So
now in that direction.
So now we are responsible for anti-Semitism. Now this is straight up victim blaming. And this is the classic play out of the terrorist playbook. Okay? You attack, there's a counterattack, and then you flip the script and you present yourself as the victim rather than the victimizer. Every time. And much of the world falls for it because the world loves an underdog and a victim. And I would say, Karen, that articulating the dynamic does not make it right.
Okay, I have one more thing I wanted to bring up for you while I've got the floor, and that is the people who live here versus the people who live there. And I feel that and it's not a goody two-shoe. I just feel if you're not there, and we all make choices. You're asking people, not that I don't agree, and not that I'm not a supporter. I am indeed, but we cannot feel the same, and that's why there is so much ambivalence where we are, as opposed to living in Israel. We don't feel the day to day. We don't feel the acrimony. We don't feel this hatred. We don't feel
That's right.
the boring. So it's easier for us to feel the ambivalence or listen and the poor Palestinians and maybe the kids are not wrong and blah blah blah. And I think as much as I think, well, this is terrible to say too, about Trump. I have to say he's standing up for the Jews in many ways because of the school situation, which they are making so light of. And I know it's a terrible thing. This is a catch-22 because I'm very much into medicine. And I feel that that is the worst part of it is what he has done to stop the medical community from research and so forth because of taking the money away in different places. But if you've got to hit somebody at some place where it's going to hurt to make them listen to something, and I just listened to what they wrote. I thought it was very good what Columbia had responded, but it was not the primary. It was almost like the ancillary.
Yes.
And that is my problem. They don't truly, they want it both ways. They want a cake and eat it. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to show my weakness, but I don't believe you either have to take a stand or not and be strong about it. It's a great educational system. It's my country. They've done a great job, but for God's sake, protect us as well.
Correct. And there is clearly a double standard.
Yes.
I mean, everyone has mentioned this, not everyone, I mean, a lot of thought leaders and pundits are like, that there is a double standard when it comes to Jews in America, that somehow we are a minority that doesn't deserve the protections that other minorities rightly deserve in America. If there were, I don't think this is a stretch at all. If there were a few thousand white supremacist college kids in an encampment in the middle of Columbia University wearing robes and walking around at night with torches and nooses, I don't think it would have taken more than 5 minutes for the administration to call the police and shut that down. I think the National Guard would have been on campus to escort those black kids to school. So there is a double standard. And since we're having a candid conversation, I actually would go deeper than that. I don't even think anti-Semitism is the actual disease. I think it is a symptom of a more metastatic and dangerous disease. In America, I'm speaking specifically in the American context. In Israel, it is straight up existential Jew hatred. I think much of this has to do with legitimate anger at income disparity in this country.
Fair.
And that if you want to lash out at successful white people,
which was it,
as long as you focus it on the Jews, you get a lot more latitude than you would otherwise. And this is the real metastatic disease, is class warfare, which is bad for everyone. And I know I'm doomsday prognosticating here, but But
the answer isn't that Mondani in New York.
No,
Okay.
No, absolutely not. But it's not. But pendulums swing, and I was there during the election in New York. It was very hard to be, so proximate and see it happening. But we've gone a little far afield here. But I think this goes back to this idea that diasporic Jewry, if ambivalent, is to the detriment of Israel and the diaspora. That this ambivalence is far from ideal. And I'm seeing less of it, by the way. I'm seeing many Jews come in from the periphery, to use David's sort of language for this. Many Jews after October 7th came from the periphery more deep, more much closer to the core. Many people called me, said, Steve, I'm done giving to my alma mater and my kids' high school and the opera and the symphony and I only want to give to Jews, or I only want to give to fight anti-Semitism, or I only want to give to Israel. And that eventually,
Well, the baby
of
out with
course,
the bathwater.
yeah, I mean, it'll pass. And what I wanted to say to you also about this issue of like, you know, shutting down the medical research at the same time. Yes, but I also think that there's a trajectory to these things, and that you've sort of described a snapshot and not the final end result. So I don't think the research, et cetera, is going to suffer or disappear.
I just hope our brain power does not really make a hijira to a different, you know.
There may be some scientists moving elsewhere, yes, but yeah, and the intelligentsia, yes, Ben. But I think there's more made of it than actually is occurring, but I don't know. I think we want to just focus on the broader point here that the diaspora is a different reality, but not one that should create ambivalence or be used as an excuse to remain on the sidelines when it comes to Israel. You know, listen, the early reformers, you know what they used to say? Berlin is our Jerusalem. Think of the irony of that. In the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, that was the slogan of Reform Judaism, which was called Wissenschaft des Judentums, the scientific study of Judaism in Germany. Berlin is our Jerusalem. Now, with the hindsight of history, what a tragic statement that was. Theodor Herzl, talking about disruption leading to evolution. Theodor Herzl was a secular Viennese journalist sent by his paper to cover the Dreyfus trial in France. And when he saw the obvious, blatant Jew hatred on display, that's when he became a Zionist, not before. So that was his wake-up call. And the periphery sometimes requires a wake-up call.
Sadly, we are sitting in that periphery.
But many of us have moved more into the core. Listen, I've expressed myself politically in ways I never did before because this is war and this is existential. And let's keep in mind that just because they failed doesn't mean the Iranians weren't trying to murder 1 million Jews. They were. The first ballistic missile attack, they launched 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. It was the largest ballistic missile attack in human history. Now, they failed because Israel, Jordan, the Saudis, and the Americans all participated in targeting and eliminating these missiles. But because they failed doesn't mean they weren't trying. And so I would say Jerusalem is our Jerusalem. That doesn't mean we need to live there. But that's the way I believe we ought to think.
But your other point that you said was that, in other words, Jews here feel, well, if you're asking us to give our money and support and everything, then we should have a say. And I happen to agree with you. We don't know anything. I totally agree with that. We know nothing, but that doesn't eliminate our support.
It's like, what's the advice about how to be a good in-law?
And I was going to say a good parent. You can't tell your child.
Yeah, or a good in-law, a good grandparent, you keep your checkbook open and your mouth shut.
Yeah, well, right.
By the way, I haven't met that in-law yet, but that. Okay, I just want to be sure, Rebecca, you were next in line, please.
My thought process has changed over the course of this hour.
Yes.
So, what I want to say
Great.
just very quickly, if you watch Chris Cuomo, he would agree with you that class wars is increasing fundamentalism in this country and producing homegrown terrorism. And I want to make a comment in that it's a great Parsha because it shows that there's division among Jews way back when.
But it wasn't really division, was it?
Well, but they came up with a compromise. And so thinking about what you said about disruption causes evolution, perhaps we need to reimagine what Zionism is.
I don't think there's any question about it. And you know, this fluidity with what Zionism really is has existed since the beginning. I mean, let's consider the fact that Herzl was offered Uganda to create this, and he didn't, and he said no, because for Herzl, Zionism was not only about a Jewish state, it was a Jewish state in the historic homeland of the Jewish people. Now, another leader could very well have defined Zionism differently and said yes to Uganda. And it's interesting to imagine what that reality would have resulted in. I've been to Uganda. It couldn't be worse. So I would say that, you know, whatever, it would have been better than the current situation in Uganda. But yes, we're constantly redefining Zionism, but at its most basic level is this fundamental belief in the right of the Jewish people to have their own nation in their historic homeland, full stop.
But I think in the diaspora, that concept is fading.
It is, and so we need to redefine our relationship with Zionism, but I don't know that I would redefine that fundamental aspect of Zionism. And I think there's more, not less, support right now than in the past. But yes, I think, look, I'll just give you an example, and we've only got a couple minutes. I was on a panel not long ago with some writers and another rabbi, and this other rabbi leans pretty hard left, and it was an exclusively Jewish crowd, and she said, "What's wrong with us? Can't we feel for the death of a baby? Really? We can't feel the pain of a dead baby?" And I was furious when she said that. I think I handled myself diplomatically, but what I wanted to say to her was, of course we care about dead babies. Hamas does not. They're the problem. We're not the problem. Yes, we care about dead babies. What is your point? You know? Because there was this both sidism to it. Oh, this is terrible, but this is also terrible. And like, what is your point? And I don't think it came off angrily, and I didn't say it like that, but that's what I was thinking. Like, of course we care. We're not the problem. And I just feel like we need a little bit more of that. Rebecca, in terms of your, like, maybe we're losing some ground. And that's why I wanted to focus just on this part of the Parsha, because look at this as a foundation story of our relationship to Israel, that we have an obligation.
Right.
Okay, guys, it's 1 o'clock, and
But when are we going to see you again?
I don't know when I'm scheduled next, but I know I'm back in September, and I'm pretty sure I'm booked in September. I'm going to be away in August.
Will you please keep it on virtual? So those.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Please.
We will. And I'm on the Bima tonight at Irmis for our beautiful outdoor service. So, you know, just saying, if anybody wants to go.
What? There's no chance of meeting again in person. I thought our last
there
Zoom we
is.
said we would try that.
No, but it would not be to the exclusion of
Right,
it
it'd be
also
both.
being on Zoom, to Karen's point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hybrid.
Okay,
Yeah.
Shabbat
But
shalom.
honestly, guys, like, I don't make the decisions anymore. So I've told them, and I will reiterate it again. I prefer IRL, but we'll see. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom to
shalom.
all.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom. Great to be with you all.
Great.
Wonderful
you
to
for
be
being
with you.
here.
And we love you even with the beard.
Bye.
Be well.
Okay. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
And to you.